All right. We are back. And I guess since Donna's got this on our screen, this is what we're going to do next, is our Library Board of Trustee appointments.
And didn't we add, like,
Donna Gordon for administration,
not everybody be on?
2 people for the Library Board of Trustees. Mrs. Pamela Peterson Daly received 1 vote, Dr. Nelson Pohl received 4 votes, and Mrs. Diane Tomasic received 5 votes.
Move approval of Dr. Nelson Pope and Diane Tomasic.
Poll.
What did I say?
Pope.
We have a motion by
You're Indiana,
Commissioner.
Illinois.
Illinois drawl.
Lost control already?
We have a motion by Commissioner Hurd, seconded by, I think, Commissioner Smith. All in favor?
Aye, aye, aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Let's go to public hearing quasi-judicial number 1, public hearing to consider adoption of an amendment to the Martin County zoning atlas to change the zoning district classification for Apex Pavers Incorporated. Mr. Brian Elam. And I got to do the quasi-judicial thing. So is there any interveners?
No.
Have you turned in all the appropriate paperwork in your resume?
The agenda in my work history.
Okay.
One.
Ex parte committee.
Yes, okay. Does anybody have any ex parte? Commissioner Smith?
If I do, they're filed.
If any, they've been filed.
If any of them have been filed for me? Commissioner Campy?
I don't have any, and that's been filed.
Okay.
I don't have any, and that's been filed.
Okay.
We need to swear in the witnesses.
Okay. Anybody that is going to testify in this hearing, please stand up and be sworn in.
Raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
And with that, proceed, please.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, Brian Elam, Principal Planner with the Growth Management Department. This is a request by McCarthy, Summers, Wood, Norman, Melby, and Schultz, PA, on behalf of Apex Pavers for a proposed amendment to the Martin County zoning atlas for a commercial designation consistent with the existing commercial general future land use. The proposed amendment is to change the existing zoning district classification from A1A Agricultural District, B1 Business District, to GC General Commercial District, or the most appropriate zoning district. The approximate 1.7 acres property consists of 2 parcels located a tenth of a mile east of Southeast Willoughby Boulevard on the south side of Southeast Monterey at 624 Southeast Monterey Road in Stewart. Access to the property is from Southeast Monterey Road by way of the private street Southeast Veterans Avenue, and included with this application is a request for a certificate of public facilities exemption. You can see here that the property consists of 2 parcels. One is this rectangular area here, and the second is the remainder. The current zoning on the property is A1A Agricultural District and B1 Business District. Both are Category C zoning districts. The A1A is not consistent with the future land use of commercial general. The B1 portion of one of the parcels is. But since they're both under common ownership, the rezoning of the B1 portion in conjunction with the mandatory rezoning of A1A is appropriate. Future land use, commercial general. There are 2 standard Category A zoning options to implement the commercial general future land use of the comp plan. One is CC Commercial, Community Commercial District. The other is GC, General Commercial District, and POD zoning is also an option. These are the development standards for the 2 Category A zoning districts. The setbacks are identical. The only differences is the community commercial has a little bit more, is a little more restrictive in terms of the building coverage, maximum building height, and open space requirements. This application was heard before the local planning agency on April 4th. It was unanimously decided to recommend staff's recommendation, or to support staff's recommendation. Development review staff have found the Apex Pavers Incorporated rezoning application to comply with all the applicable regulations and comprehensive growth management plan as detailed in the staff report. Staff recommends approval of the rezoning request by Apex Pavers Incorporated. We move that the board receive and file the agenda item and all its attachments, including the staff report, as Exhibit 1, and move that the board approve the request to rezone from A1A Agricultural District, B1 Business District, to GC General Commercial District. And that concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Very nice.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, does the applicant have a?
Good afternoon. I'm Kristen Spake from McCarthy Summers on behalf of the applicant, Apex Pavers. I certainly cannot improve on the presentation of your expert. Thank you. And I won't try to. So I'll just say we appreciate the recommendation that the rezoning be approved, and we would appreciate your support. If you have any questions, we're here to answer them.
Commissioner Campy?
Barring any public comment, I would be, it'd be my pleasure to approve this request. I think Apex Pavers, I know the company, I see them, they're everywhere in town. Everything they do is great, they do beautiful work, and we're happy that you're looking to expand here in Martin County, so thank you very much.
Hold on a minute, we got the lawyer wants to talk.
Elise Elder, Deputy County Attorney. I just want to confirm for the record that notices were turned in at the LPA for the hearing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, cool. So, you made a motion?
I did.
There's no public,
You seconded it? Okay, great.
and that there's no public comment.
And is there any public comment? I see no public comment. So we have a motion by Commissioner Campy, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Okay, our next item, public hearing quasi-judicial number 2. Public hearing to consider adoption of an amendment to the Martin County zoning atlas to change the zoning classifications for Mr. Eric Brush, John Sinana?
Senate?
What?
Yes. Senate, like the state senate or senator.
Really? Okay.
So if you became a senator, you would be
Senator.
Senator.
I like it. You can sit down now.
Isn't it? Why don't you
So,
tell us about yourself?
Commissioners, the quasi-judicial, so
Okay.
He knows.
I'm sorry.
He's been
All
up here all the
right,
time.
so I guess, so stand and be sworn in. No, I guess that's where you were headed. I'm sorry.
Raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, do we have any interveners?
There are no interveners.
Okay, have you turned in all the appropriate paperwork, including your resume and,
I'm going to give my work history and a copy of the agenda item to be filed as Exhibit 1.
okay, do we have any ex parte, Commissioner Smith?
I do their filed.
Commissioner Heatherington?
if any, they've been filed.
If any of them been filed, Commissioner Campy?
I don't have any. That's been filed.
I don't have any, and that's been filed.
All right. I got it all? Wow.
And the proof of public notice mailers was submitted at the LPA hearing.
Perfect.
I'm John Sennett, Senior Planner with Growth Management. I'm here to present the rezoning application on property owned by Mr. Eric Brush. This application is also known as the Green Ridge Ranch rezoning. It is a request by Kotler and Hearing on behalf of the property owner, Mr. Eric Brush, to rezone from the current A2 Agricultural District to the AR5A Agricultural Ranchette District on an approximately 20.1 acre undeveloped site. This site is located on the west side of Southwest Green Ridge Lane, just over half a mile south of the intersection of Southwest Green Ridge Lane and Southwest 96th Street in western Palm City. The existing Green Ridge Estates subdivision is located to the east of the property across Green Ridge Lane. It's currently undeveloped. The existing future land use of the property and the surrounding properties is agricultural ranchette. Both the property and the surrounding properties to the west, south, and east have the A2 agricultural zoning district designation. The A2 district is a Category C zoning district. The AR5A district is present a short distance to the north of the property. Because the existing A2 agricultural district is a Category C zoning district, this application is being processed as a mandatory rezoning to a Category A zoning district, which implements the policies for the agricultural ranchette future land use designation. There are two standard Category A zoning districts which implement the agricultural ranchette future land use designation. Those are the AR5A district and the AR10A district. The PUD zoning is also an additional option. However, the applicant is requesting the AR5A ag ranchette district. These are the development standards for both the AR5A and AR10A. Category A zoning district. The open space and height are similar for both. The only real difference is the minimum lot size and the allowable density. The allowable setbacks for the AR5A and AR10A zoning districts, 40 feet, front, side, and rear. There are certain conditions supporting the applicant's request for the AR5A zoning district. That would be the existing future land use designation of agricultural ranchette for the property and the surrounding area. There's an existing AR5A zoning district a short distance to the north of the property. And the existing Green Ridge Estates residential subdivision is located to the east of the property across Green Ridge Lane. The Green Ridge Estates subdivision was platted in the late 1970s and consists of 5-acre lots. This matter was heard before the LPA this past Thursday, April 4th. The LPA moved to approve staff's recommendation 4-0. Development review staff have found the Green Ridge Ranch rezoning application to comply with all applicable regulations, and the comprehensive growth management plan is detailed in our staff report. Staff recommendation is to approve the applicant's request to rezone to the AR5A zoning district. Move that the board receive and file the agenda item and its attachments, including the staff report, as Exhibit 1. Move that the board adopt a resolution amending the Martin County zoning atlas to change the zoning district designation on the subject site from A2 Agricultural District to AR5A Agricultural Ranchette District. That concludes my presentation.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, applicant?
Good afternoon, George Missimer with Kotler and Hearing. Here today on behalf of the property owner. I have been sworn in. I do have a presentation, although it's all the same information that John just went over. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer. Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant? Do we have any public comment on the subject? I see none. Back to the board.
We'll move staff's recommendation for approval.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Heatherington, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Good job, Mr. Senate.
Thank you, Commissioner Hurd.
First time before us, you got a unanimous. You probably can expect those all the time. You're batting 1,000.
With that, let's go to Mrs. Stephanie Murley.
Speaking of batting 1,000.
Department number 1, Office of Management and Budget items which will require board approval, and apparently there's 3 items.
3 items.
All right.
So our first item is permission to apply for the fiscal year 25 Federal Environmental Infrastructure Community Funding Appropriation. This is a requested grant award of approximately $20 million for the water and wastewater infrastructure, including stormwater management, to improve water quality in the St. Lucie River and Indian River Lagoon. It requires a 25% cost share for projects that will be programmed within our capital improvement plan to be determined. And I have John Mayle here. If you have any questions regarding that, I do know that is a big $20 million ask. No? Okay. The next item is a permission to accept the E911 state grant for the Rapid SOS Premium. This is our Sheriff's Office E91 division is requesting to accept a grant award in the amount of $143,280 and no matches required. This is to be used for the premium version of the Rapid SOS platform to enhance current workflow by utilizing local and regional GIS data for 911 calls. And the last little item is a request for funds from broadband reserves. While we wait for insurance proceeds, a contractor was performing some underground directional drilling at Pomeroy and US 1, which caused damage to the Martin County fiber optic. And in order to do these repairs, we need to take it out of our broadband reserves in the amount of $22,476. And that is all I have for you today.
Commissioner Hurd would like to talk to you about.
Yes,
that
on
item, I think.
number 3, a contractor screwed up and we're paying for it?
We have to repair it now, and we anticipate insurance proceeds on the back end.
Why is insurance covering it? Why isn't the contractor covering it?
I believe we usually put in a claim. I don't have it, TRICO information right this second.
Jim Gorton, Public Works Director. So when we have accidents that occur, we have to pay for the repair while we seek the insurance reimbursement, and then the funds come back to us after that.
And
But
are
it's
we
usually
seeking insurance repayment from our insurer or theirs?
No, we would go after whoever caused the damage.
They caused the
As
damage.
long as it was appropriately marked, we would go after whoever caused the damage.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I think we all had that same question when I read it. I was like, why are we paying?
There's usually a lag of about 3 months
Okay.
between when we have to fix it and when we get the money back.
Any other questions?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hurd, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Department number 2, contracts that meet the threshold for board approval, $1 million or greater. Miss Christy Brotherton.
Good afternoon, Christy Brotherton, Chief Procurement Officer. We have 2 items for your consideration today. The first item is the Indian Riverside Park Lagoon Boardwalk Expansion Contract. Staff is recommending that the board award the contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, which is Custom Built Marine Construction, in the amount of $1,110,257.30, and move that the board authorize the county administrator or designee to execute all documents related to this request. The next item is a change order request for the Golden Gate Neighborhood Resurfacing Project. The purpose of this change order is for roadway reconstruction of Southeast Birch Avenue and Southeast Durant Avenue that was not included in the original scope of work. The Office of Community Development has requested the additional work to improve the roadway connectivity within the Golden Gate neighborhood. And staff is recommending that the board approve change order number 3 to M&M Asphalt Maintenance, doing business as All County Paving, in the amount of $228,477.95, and move that the board authorize the county administrator or designee to execute any and all documents related to this request. And that concludes this item.
Commissioner Heatherington.
Yeah, I have a couple questions, concerns, and interest on this project. So this is Golden Gate. It's the resurfacing after the septic to sewer. And this change order is for the roadways that are privately maintained but will be resurfaced, not part of the scope. So completely agree. This is the third change order. So the first one was in the neighborhood of 29 or so thousand. The second one was in the neighborhood of 190 or so thousand for extra material. And as we drove, and I've driven, with Mr. Gorton, and I continue to go in the neighborhood and talk to, and this comes up frequently at our NAC meetings. Those roads are so very degraded that we're finding that more and more is necessary, and that I don't know who did the plans, if there's contingency, if they did sampling, but it almost seems like maybe more sampling is necessary, because I'm very concerned that if we just simply resurface, then we're going to be right back here in a couple years because the condition of the roadway is so poor. Do we put contingencies in these jobs?
In the cost estimate, it's more of a budgeting thing on behind the scenes, but we don't bid them with contingencies.
So on private jobs, no contingency? Because we're obviously, it was originally at 2.8, and I think we're about $450,000 in change orders and probably 18%. And we could definitely expect more change orders in that. And I'm going to ask that Public Works do sampling, because I'm very concerned, as are some of the residents and the NAC. Again, it comes up that we're just kind of putting lipstick on a pig. We're going to resurface it, and we're going to be right back in this position in a couple years from now with completely and those roads are about 40 years old.
Yeah, so Jim Gordon, Public Works Director. The change order 2 addressed some of those deficiencies. What we found was on some of the roadways, there was insufficient base underneath the asphalt, and before we paved it, we wanted to improve the base condition, and that's what change order 2 was to excavate that material out and add more, really kind of mix in the millings and re-roll it so we get a solid base before we pave it. And then there probably will be other areas that we'll encounter on the project because it isn't consistently bad. It's just spotty where there's spots under the road that have insufficient base underneath it. So we do have the ability to core the roads, and we have done some of that to try to identify those spots. But as we go through the project, as it gets milled through, if we see those same conditions, we will have to address the deficient base material. And it isn't, we would have cores everywhere to really find them because it's not consistent where we're finding those insufficient conditions. But we are not just putting asphalt on top of inadequate base.
So we're definitely going to sample as we go along.
Sample, and then we also have inspectors who are out there, entirely watching that project to make sure we get the paving done in the right locations.
Well, so we're going to be, they're very concerned at the NAC, as they should be, to make sure that this is a project that lasts for, a good time to come. And then the second thing is, when we're, just bigger picture, so if we're 18% over the budget on something like this, when we're doing our budgeting process, do we not want to put in a contingency or something on some of these jobs? Because we're gonna be far over our budget on some of these projects, and we're gonna have to move money from somewhere if we're gonna be 20-30% over the budget.
Well, the $230,000 isn't, of the current change order that we're talking about now, isn't related to unknown conditions. It is a request by the CRA to pave unpaved roads in the community. So it's a way to convert those unpaved privately maintained roads into paved publicly maintained roads. Typically, we would do an assessment for those properties, but because it's in the CRA, we have the ability to use those TIF funds to convert those roadways. So it was, it's not unforeseen, it's just a request that was made. Why don't we use this contract, get it at a cheaper rate, because our unit cost on that asphalt's pretty cheap because we already have them paving all the other roads. So we can get those paved much cheaper than we would if we had done it as a separate project.
So, okay, take this one out.
Then we'd be at
There's
about 10%
there's going to be other change orders based on the conditions of those roadways, and I suspect we're going to be significantly over budget. That's going to have to be accounted for somewhere in these capital improvement projects, so.
Absolutely, but I wouldn't say this is the norm, this is the exception. We just did Gomez and had extensive paving, much more paving than this one, and didn't have that degree of change order. So this one is really more unique because of how old those roadways are and what we're finding in some of those locations. A great example is right in front of the park where our bus stop is. There's some pavement that's breaking up there that we've already done a core on, and we know that the base isn't sufficient in that location. But if you go across the street in the other lane, just 10 feet away, there's sufficient base.
I'm actually glad to hear that. Thank you, Jim.
Yep.
Mr. Donaldson.
Just simply say that what's important in this conversation is that you support us to continue as they mill out and they find that there is sand in one location and base in the other, that we can continue to repair it, and that you're okay with them coming back with a future change order so that we can build it correctly while we're there. The impact that you referenced would be, in the worst-case scenario, there may be another project scheduled for next fall that we may have to delay or look at from balance to catch up. So we would shuffle the deck to make sure that this one gets done right first, and something else in the future might have to wait.
That I'm 100% behind, and I just, if there's anything we could do on the front end to get
Yep.
these plans or do the sampling on the front end to account for it, I'm 100% in support of doing this work so we can have a better picture, whether it be we need to hire an engineer or do the plans differently.
Thank you. It's helpful.
Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, I think the most important thing for me in the overall conversation is the idea that we've had older neighborhoods throughout Martin County that have privately maintained, or whether they're publicly owned or privately maintained, dirt roads or roads that are in somewhat very low condition, and that the neighborhood is supportive of us converting them over and getting them taken care of and getting them up to where they should be. And we had some in Rio similar to that we worked with the property owners for years. And the challenge sometimes you run into is that you have ownership in these older neighborhoods from center line to center line of the lots, and there's no right-of-way for us to go in and do drainage work. There's no right-of-way to go in and do water and sewer. And to get to the point where apparently yours are getting to is I think, is a huge accomplishment. And so keep on going, and if there's change orders, that's fine, but I think the brilliance of this sort of neighborhood restoration strategy is that we are taking advantage of contracts. We are taking advantage of the mobilization of equipment in these neighborhoods that hopefully will reduce the cost versus coming in 2 years from now and doing something that wasn't anticipated. But the CRA says, hey, we really want to do this. Well, we should have done it 2 years ago when we were in there doing the work. So I keep on going. Great stuff.
Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, is this an accessible project?
It's not an accessible project. It's being paid through the TIF funds from the Golden Gate CRA.
And they're paying for the change orders too?
They're just change order 3. Yeah, the other change orders are through our neighborhood restoration project. It was a neighborhood restoration. We did stormwater, we did septic to sewer conversion, and then the third phase is the paving of the roads after those first two.
And none of that was accessible?
None of that was accessible. Our neighborhood restoration project program is going into those older neighborhoods and taking out the older materials.
The roads were already our maintenance responsibility. We don't assess for the.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. The public works portions of the project were not accessible, which included the stormwater and the paving. The sewer, of course, was accessible.
Is that the way that it's been in all the neighborhood restoration programs?
That's how all of the neighborhood restorations have occurred.
Okay.
And they're mostly funded out of the FPL franchise fees. And that really was a way to catch up on all that deferred maintenance that we had. We had 17 years of deferred maintenance on some of these roadways, and this is our means of getting that stuff caught back up. And there's a lot of we've made a lot of progress, but we have a lot of projects ahead to get caught up.
Thanks.
Did you have anything else?
No, sir.
Okay.
That I will move staff's recommendation for approval.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Heatherington, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And now, we get to hear from Miss Sarah Powers, Legislative Session Final Report.
So, right here, Sarah Powers, Legislative Coordinator. This is going to be pretty brief, since the governor hasn't, he's signing bills as we saw today, he's still signing bills. Budget hasn't been signed yet, so everything I say today still could change tomorrow or until June. So we'll come back in this summer with a more in-depth what happened. So regular session dates were January 9th to March 8th. There were 1,900 general bills filed. 325 of those passed both chambers. And as of yesterday, 66 bills have been signed, but I think he signed like 5 more this morning. So, right here, right at Walgreens in Stewart. Yes. So this year, some of the budget highlights, $117.46 billion. It's actually not historic. That's a typo. It was larger last year. So you can see some of the general revenue at $49.4 billion, $10 billion in reserves. Everglades restoration and the South Florida Water Management District operations were fully funded at $702 million. $528.6 million in Florida Forever. Visit Florida was fully funded again this year at $80 million. The ship and sale programs were also funded, and the Florida Job Growth Grant Fund was funded at $75 million. Some of our Martin County budget accomplishments this year, we had 6 asks and we got 4 funded. The Martin County Sheriff's Office mental health pod at $500,000, 710 realignment for $3.5 million, Bessie Creek retrofit at $500,000, and the Gomez Petway potable water service at $940,000. So a total of just about $5.5 million. Still could be vetoed. It's sitting on his desk, but we're actively reaching out to the governor's office with letters and trying to keep all of our funding as it is now. Some highlighted legislation that we've been going over this past session, SB 1638, that directs 96% of the revenue generated from the Seminole Tribe Compact to fund flood control and water quality improvement infrastructure and continued acquisition and management of Florida's conservation lands. House Bill 105, that's a public works bill. It just revises the definition of public works projects to include any project paid for by local funds in addition to state appropriated funds. HB 433 prevents local governments, it's employment it prevents local governments from adding additional ordinances related to workplace heat exposure and wage requirements higher than the standard. SB 280 is the vacation rentals bill, just levels the playing field for the hotels and vacation rentals in our area by allowing the county to collect the bed tax and create a local vacation rental registration program. So again, it just takes we have a lot of small business hotels in Martin County, so it just equals them with Airbnb. HB 267 changes the time frame that local governments must approve or deny building permit applications. SB 812 requires counties to create a process to expedite the issuance of residential building permits.
Laura, can you go back to 267 for a second?
Yes.
So what exactly ended up happening with that?
So it passed, so there lays out timeframes. It's just expedited what was there before. I don't have the exact, but it went from
In other words, it gives us a time limit on when we can, how long we have to.
Right, it went from so I forget exactly which process, but 30 days to 5 days, 60 days to 20 days. It's all laid out.
It's a significant change.
It is a significant change in their timeline. So I don't have all the numbers, but I can get that. I'll probably have that more as time goes on.
Hold that thought.
Okay.
Turn your.
In relation to that, our challenge will be at times when you are staff resource short or with the competition for quality plan reviewers and inspectors, we may have to resort to more contractual relationships. It'll either be more expensive or the time given to review will be less. So in times of high demand, the quality of service may be difficult to achieve our normal standards.
Moving on, HB 479 mobility fees requires that we work with our municipalities and only charge one fee that go on roads that go through our county. SB 7040, that ratifies the statewide stormwater bill, or statewide stormwater rule that was passed in 2020 in the Clean Waterways Act. Just makes more stringent standards for stormwater treatment. HB 1365, that is the bill that will ban homeless camping on our streets, and it'll give the counties an opportunity to create the public sleeping camps. We don't have, it's not a requirement, but it gives the county guidelines for creating these camps if we so choose. And then SB 328 was a huge bill that passed. It's made a lot of clarifying and substantial changes to Live Local. I think that was a collaborative act, and after, yes.
Did it, and I didn't follow it as closely as I probably should have. Did it eliminate industrial?
Yes, and there were some changes. I don't think it eliminated industrial completely, but I think that I'd have to go back and.
I think relative to some of the applications we've seen in the last year or so, that there's been the hesitancy to deal with industrial because that was certainly a big talking point during session.
Yeah.
I just don't know if they eliminated it, took it out, limited it.
Yeah, I have to double check. I don't know if they completely eliminated industrial, but I know that was one of the points they were trying to change.
Commissioner Campy.
Thank you. Ms. Powers or Mr. Donaldson, can you have, like we had in the past when we discussed SB 102 and the Live Local, now that we've had sort of a redo of it, can you have someone come and make an agenda item to have a presentation of what it was and what it is? Thank you.
Yes.
And two bills that we're following that didn't pass were county commissioner term limits and the development permits and orders bill. That it came up and made it through, but it didn't pass, and that was one of our big concerns. So,
Commissioner Hurd.
Any idea what kind of appropriations are going to be available through the proceeds on SB 1638?
I don't know.
100 million? 200 million?
Yeah, it was pretty.
500 million?
I think it was around 100 million, right? More? Sorry. Over $1 billion.
Oh, really?
$1 billion.
Okay.
And then,
How much was received oh, it wasn't a law. It wasn't a law, yes. Okay, good.
No, but they've been funding like 300 or 400 million for the last couple of years.
$1 billion's better.
Several more.
And that is all I have. So if you have any questions, let me know. We'll get someone to talk about Live Local soon. And anything else. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
For all your effort.
All right, we have reached the end of our agenda. Time for 5:05 public comment at 2:25. We have one form, Mr. Gary. Okay. Could you repeat your name so I can hear it?
My name is Gary Erler. I'm a resident of Port Salerno. I wasn't prepared for this at all, so I still want to remind you, I spoke with you a few months ago as far as meeting minutes posted. The last meeting minutes posted online is actually 8/8 of '23. That was the last one posted. Commission meeting of 8/22 has not been posted. We're almost 8 months since that last meeting. As far as transparency goes, and someone looking to research or find out what happened in a commission meeting, I understand that the agenda summaries are posted, but the meeting minutes list everything. So when you're looking to try to find something or see who said something, or a general consensus of what's going on in the name of transparency, which is what we're all about, we're 8 months out. I think we can do better. I also happen to be looking through 2024's budget. You've allocated $150,000 to the Manatee Pocket mooring field. We didn't even know we were having a mooring field. We knew we were having a mooring field in Jensen. We weren't sure where it was going. That, as you heard earlier from some of the residents that I was watching online, the yellow signs go up. Mr. Campy, Mr. Smith, this will not be your last chance to get before us. I'm sorry, we were railroaded. It was our fault. We weren't on top of it. Goes back again to the transparency. $900,000 is allocated fiscal year 2024 for SPS Manatee Business Park restoration under roads. We're doing commerce. I happened to look at a map. The vacant land and the 4 stories across the street the city of Stewart has. I'm not sure how far south Commerce that is, but there's $900,000 for roads. I get it. Septic to sewers in New Monrovia, #1 topic across the county. I understand. I happened to read an email to you, Mr. Jenkins, from, I believe it was across the water, Sailfish Point. They're half converted. They want to know what they got to do to get the other half. Salerno's less than that. Monrovia, a tenth of that. We want it too. There's no money anywhere. Grants, we had 10 million, we gave
Sir,
it
your
back.
time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right.
Can I respond or ask a question about the minutes? That's the minutes that come through the clerk's office?
The BOCC minutes are through the clerk's office, yes.
Now, I know they can be watched agenda item by agenda item video-wise, but can we find out why it is? I mean, I don't know why it would be 8 months. Because I had a couple of people question some of my comments in a commission meeting, and I said you could watch it online, but the actual written minutes is something that people have asked of me as well. So if we could find out why it's so far backlogged?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Guess we're commissioner comments. Commissioner Smith? Commissioner Heatherington?
I'm all set.
I'm all set. Commissioner Campy?
All set.
Are you all set? Okay. Commissioner Hurt?
Yeah, we had received $18 million in grants from DEP for the New Monrovia, Port Salerno Septic to Sewer program, and at the community's request, we turned that money in, hoping to get a bigger appropriation from them, and were unsuccessful. But it was at the community's request that we made that move. And also, the mooring field in Port Salerno was presented to the NAC 6 times before we approved it. So there has been lots of community participation, lots of public involvement. Thank you.
Okay, you have the floor, Mr. Duncan.
Yes, so I saved it for the end of the day, so bear with me. I have 3 items to discuss with you. The first one is an important item that Mr. Dan McHenry brought to our attention, and that's Congressman Brian Mast has submitted a bill that would amend, they call Title 398 of the United States Code. And this is for our veterans and their ability to extend the deadline for submission of applications regarding emergency treatment. And so right now, they're required to submit within 72 hours of going to the emergency room, in which case they may actually be in the hospital for some time. This allows them to submit the requirement, would be 72 hours following discharge. So it's significant. So I'm asking for support for our chairman to sign a letter to in support of Brian Mast's bill to Congress.
Go ahead. You have it.
Thank you. I think that's an excellent idea. I see Mr. McHenry is here. If we could ask him to come forward, I have a question.
Our most esteemed Veterans Administrator.
That's what my question's going to be about. Mr. McHenry, how are you doing?
Well, sir, how are you doing?
I heard a terrible rumor that you're retiring.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
From you, actually. When is that going to take place?
April 26th.
April 26th, so before we have another commission meeting, correct?
Oh, that is correct, yes.
I just wanted to publicly thank you for your service. We have had remarkable Veteran Services officers in the past, but you set the bar very high. You are a gentleman. All of the things that we had come up with, I know that veterans have come forward and not only commended you personally, but your department, and that you will be a terrible loss for us. So I wish you well in your retirement, and thank you for your service and for your service to us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Back to you.
Yeah, so if I could get a motion to authorize the chair's.
Motion to authorize the chair to write that letter that Congressman Mast and Mr. McHenry had recommended.
Second.
I'd rather sign it. He's going to write it.
You'll sign it then.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Campy, seconded by Commissioner Heatherington. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, the second letter I'm asking support for, and I'm not sure that it needs a motion, but at least a head nod, and that is our Senator President Kathleen Pasadomo's husband passed away recently, and I thought a letter from the board in support of her would be appropriate, and I know you all shared that, so we can prepare a letter for the chairman to sign on behalf of the board, if that's okay with you all.
Passed away tragically while hiking in
Bryce Canyon.
Bryce Canyon in Utah. Just to remind people, including my son, that hiking is very dangerous.
And the last item, which is also an important item, is that is we've had some discussions, as you know, regarding providing a water system to Evergreen community and in Whinstone. And it started some time ago, and one of the challenges that staff has had is getting the water upgrades to the community. And there's looping sections going under a canal and under that, and as I got more into it more recently, one of the things that I have identified is that there are, in our septic to sewer program, the facilities that it takes to get to the community, the utility upgrades, we've been providing those upgrades without being part of the special assessment. And I wanted to bring that to your attention because I think it's only fair we do that to the same for communities within the urban service boundary, that we allow water service that once the utility upgrades that come either in the ground to make them larger size or to get them to that community would be part of our county's obligation, and that the special assessments are all related to the interior of the community. And so I think to be consistent, one, I'd like to make sure that, one, if you support that, we would do it for the Evergreen community and bring back a policy to the board so that all communities would be treated equally. We already do it for the sewer system, but to do it for the water, and this would again apply to existing properties, not new development, but existing properties within the urban boundary. And if you're all accepting of that, I'd like to move forward with that.
Commissioner Smith.
That was on a different topic, so
Oh.
we can follow this.
Commissioner Campy.
Yes, I appreciate that, Mr. Donaldson. I know that when we had a couple of community meetings, and I'd like to compliment our staff in utilities, you know, they have to embrace these neighborhoods one at a time, and all of the idiosyncrasies that come with the project technically, and the politics of the HOA boards and the residents. And I know that this one was a little more complicated because it was two adjoining neighborhoods, so there was double the HOAs and different, you know, it wasn't just specifically a neighborhood. So the messaging and the information made it a little more challenging. I think this is a step in the right direction, that the residents should really only be responsible for things once inside the perimeter of their own neighborhoods, not leading up to it. I think that infrastructure backbone is truly our responsibility as the government, as the county. And then did you also have some you and I had a conversation about trying to make the dollar amount a little more uniform. Is that part of the same conversation?
That's what does it. So you're not, where one community has to, we do a 1,000-foot extension down the road to get to them, and another one, like we did to Golden Gate, we had to extend and upgrade a size quite a bit. That was, you would have completely different assessment values based upon that external. But when you do internally, that would level the playing field and get the ideas that a water system would be, typically, if we do that, would be under 10,000 per individual as opposed to higher. And our goal for septic to sewer right now is to keep it under 12. So it would certainly make it in the urban boundary more affordable.
I think that's a step in the right direction. I also think it lends some consistency, because one of the concerns we had heard from residents at our meeting was that, the neighbors, the residents will be tasked with voting on what was, at that particular point, much more of a range of cost. So we're asking you to vote on making a purchase when we could not really define specifically. There was a range. It was 12.5 to 14.5. And residents came to the microphone and said, well, how do you want us to either campaign to have people do this or even vote ourselves if we're not genuinely sure what the number will be? This will allow us to have a much more consistent number. It's a step in the right direction to make it less expensive. It's a little more true and fair to the residents will pay for what they're genuinely getting within their own streets, not what's happening out on the main road. And then the most important part is that it's for existing, well-established neighborhoods, not new developments. They're responsible for all of that. So I appreciate staff putting their heads together to come up with the logical, fair solution for Evergreen and Whinstone now and potentially all other neighborhoods in the future. Thank you. I would make a motion to allow that to happen.
So I think if you're comfortable, the most I'd want you to do is make a motion that we do it for Whinstone and that I bring the policy back to address everybody, or you can simply ask us to bring the policy back. It's your...
I'd make a motion that we accept this new policy for Whinstone and Evergreen in Palm City.
And I'll bring back a policy that addresses the entire county.
Commissioner Smith?
I'll second that.
Okay.
And then I have after this.
Yep. We have a motion by Commissioner Campy, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and Commissioner Smith has a comment.
Yeah, just a thought relative to our congressman asking for some support for the VA affairs
Hard to hear you.
and bills.
Yeah, you're
Quiet, you're very quiet.
your mic isn't really working.
Sorry.
Oops.
Just following on with our congressional member asking for some support for the VA language and so on, I think it would be, based upon all of our conversation this morning with our residents relative to the Voyage project down in South County, that we maybe send some sort of request communication to our federal delegation asking for some shape, form of consideration to modifying, giving us some flexibility as to how to deal with this in the future. I just, I'm sure it has been asked and dealt with 100 times before, but I think unless we exercise all of our asks of our delegation, our residents are still going to feel as if there was more that we could do and we didn't. And so I don't know if you all support this idea or not, but I think we ought to reach out with some kind of communication explaining what exists. I'm sure they know it exists. And I know that I've been told before that amending the American Disabilities Act is like an act of changing the Constitution, but nonetheless not dissimilar to maybe SB 102 and some of the things that needed to be changed in that bill. There ought to be some kind of recognition that putting a 15-person bed unit in a residential neighborhood is not appropriate. And I don't know how you get there, but that's what they're up there for, and I think we ought to communicate that to them.
Agreed.
Agreed.
So Dawn, if you could put your heads together over there
Do that,
with
we'll bring something back to you to
what
give
that
you
might
some
look
idea.
like, and I don't have that box to look into, but, and that's it, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Okay, we have reached the end of the end. Our next meeting will be April 30th, 2024, and with that, we are adjourned.